Welcome back, true believers and all you spectacular Spidey fans out there, to another sensational episode of Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales 101. And man, do we have a ton of news to talk about today relating to Miles Morales in all of his amazing glory. So not only did we receive the incredible 7-minute long gameplay demo of Miles Morales PS5 in action during the PlayStation Showcase event, but there was also a brand new PlayStation blog post coming directly from Insomniac Games which analyzed new information which wasn't showcased directly in the PlayStation 5 event. But for starters, let's begin with the most important pieces of information that have been asked about frequently for Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales, is exactly when the game itself as well as the PlayStation 5 console are going to release this year in holiday 2020. And to call back the previous PlayStation 5 leak that did relate to both of these items, it turns out that that leak was actually half correct. So as it was fully revealed at the very end of the PS5 showcase, the PlayStation 5 physical edition is going to cost at around $499 USD, whereas the digital edition is going to cost around $399 USD if you get that version of the PS5 console. And what's crazier is that it turns out that the official release date for both Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales and the PlayStation 5 are earlier than what the leak indicated. And to make this point even clearer, coming directly from Insomniac Games themselves, they went on Twitter posting Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales will be launching on November 12th and November 19th alongside PS5. And guess what? We're releasing the game on PS4 as well, with a bunch of awesome hashtags to celebrate the occasion, including none other than hashtag Miles Morales PS4. And yes, you heard me correctly, is that the PlayStation 5 console is going to release in the US, Japan, Canada, Mexico, Australia, New Zealand, and South Korea specifically on November 12th, which will then be followed directly by a complete worldwide release of the console everywhere on November 19th. However, due to the craziness of the worldwide pandemic that we are currently facing, it certainly has been making it a bit harder for general consumers to try and secure a pre-order of the console to either pick it up physically at a store or try and order it online. So if you're someone who's sadly not able to pick up a PS5 on its day one release, or just not have enough money for a brand new console in general, Insomniac Games had that fully in mind and actually have been developing Miles Morales for both the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 simultaneously. So knowing that Miles Morales is going to be a completely cross-generation title between the PS4 and PS5 is just absolutely phenomenal. However, even though I will be more than happy to fully experience Miles Morales on my Spider-Man themed PS4 Pro, I still would personally want to fully experience the game as how it was meant to be experienced on the PlayStation 5. And based on all the recent information that has been provided about the game within this PlayStation blog post, I can guarantee you that Miles Morales is going to set the boundary for what we can expect in the future on the PlayStation 5 console generation. So if that gameplay demo wasn't enough to actually convince you as to how good the game is going to run on the PS5, hopefully this brand new article will persuade you in a different light. So to start at the beginning of this article, which was written directly by the community director over at Insomniac Games himself of James Stevenson, he goes on to summarize exactly what we saw within the Miles Morales gameplay footage, saying that the demo opens with Miles and his best friend Gank Lee walking through their East Harlem neighborhood to an election rally for Miles' mother, Rio Morales. Here you'll see some of the characters you'll get to know during the game and a glimpse at the culture of the neighborhood. We hope you love the beautiful visuals of a wintertime Marvel's New York, our neon noir aesthetic for the game, and gorgeous ray traced reflections, which in case you don't know are also known as really damn good looking puddles. And as we progress within the demo itself, Miles is searching for a sense of belonging in his vibrant new neighborhood. But a war has broken out between a devious energy corporation, also known as Roxxon, and a high-tech criminal army, also known as the Underground. In the gameplay sequence you saw captured from PlayStation 5 hardware, the Underground interrupts the election rally. Meanwhile, the Underground also attacks a Roxxon convoy on the Braithwaite Bridge in an attempt to steal new form energy canisters. And to sound a bit similar to exactly what the overall purpose was for the Terrigen reactor in Marvel's Avengers, Nuform is a highly violent energy source that Roxxon promises can power the entire city cleanly. Here we meet the leader of the Underground, which has now been fully revealed as the one and only Brilliant Tinkerer. Marvel fans will surely recognize the name of this villain from the comics, but we're very excited to introduce you to our take on this classic Spider-Man villain. Now, there have been some very interesting theories surfacing online already indicating that Tinkerer may in fact possibly be Insomniac's version of Wraith, who, as we know from Spider-Man PS4, is none other than Spider-Man's right-hand cop buddy of Yuri Watanabe. And considering that Insomniac are already switching the Spider-Man lore as to what we saw at the very end of Spider-Man PS4's post-credit scene, where instead of making the primary host of Venom to be none other than Eddie Brock, it looks like that Insomniac are hinting towards the fact that Harry Osborn might be this universe's version of Venom down the line. But whether or not that turns out to be true is just something that we'll have to uncover for ourselves when playing the game at launch. But moving on with the summary of the demo, Miles races to the bridge and using his explosive new bioelectric venom and camouflage abilities, attempts to stop the underground while protecting the citizens of Marvel's New York City. But as Miles endeavors to rise to the challenge of becoming his own Spider-Man, he finds it's not as easy as just having impressive new powers. Beyond the thrilling gameplay demo, the video itself also shows off some of the amazing visuals that are available for the game on PS5. We are taking advantage of the next generation in many more ways as well for the PS5. From the silky smooth targeted 60 FPS frame rate performance mode, to feeling the bioelectric venom energy course through your fingertips via the haptic feedback of the DualSense controller, to hearing Marvel's New York surround you in lush 3D audio, Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales will be a showpiece for the PlayStation 5. So to anyone who still possibly thinks that this is simply going to be DLC for Spider-Man PS4 and nothing else, Insomniac is right here to tell you flat out that you are dead wrong. But as something to point out which I find incredibly shocking is that Insomniac Games did go on Twitter after the demo was revealed, indicating to fellow Twitter user Nikita Ayuba saying that they actually showed off the footage of the Miles Morales PS5 gameplay demo in 30 FPS instead of 60 FPS. And if that's how good Miles Morales PS5 looked in a 30 FPS setting, I can only imagine how smooth it's going to be in the full-on 60 FPS performance mode. And just as a personal opinion from myself, after having seen this gameplay more times than I can count, I am in absolute awe as to what Insomniac have managed to pull off with this game, knowing the fact that they actually started development for Miles Morales PS5 immediately after they finished Spider-Man PS4 back in 2018. Everything from the combat to the overall visual aesthetic of the game to just how seeing the story is playing out with Miles Morales' character in full within the Insomniac universe of Spider-Man lore is just an absolute spectacle to witness unfold. Spider-Man PS4 was already my personal pick for Game of the Year in 2018, and I have no doubt in my mind that Miles Morales is going to do the exact same thing within this year of 2020. And given the fact that we only now have to wait less than 2 whole months until Miles Morales releases both on the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5, it's surely going to be smooth sailing from here on out, and the marketing for the game is probably going to kick up in full force sometime next month in October. And whether or not that translates into a full-on Game Informer coverage similar to what we saw with Spider-Man PS4 back in April of 2018 is something we're just gonna have to stay tuned on until October arrives in 2020. And to reiterate that point a bit further, Insomniac goes on to describe the cross-generation capabilities of Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales while also revealing the official price of the game at launch. And as the article goes on to describe, we're also excited today to reveal that Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales will be arriving on both PS5 and PS4. Yes, that's right, we know that some of you may transition to PS5 at different times, which is why it was important to us to release the latest title in the Marvel Spider-Man universe on both consoles. The Standard Edition will be available digitally on the PlayStation Store or physically at your local retailer for $49.99 USD. So even though that price is a bit more than what the leak previously indicated, it still is crazy that they're selling a brand new next-generation Spider-Man game at a lower price compared to the standard $60 price tag. Especially considering how good the game looks already, that's just a treat in and of itself. Although some of the concerns that are coming from some people, which I do completely understand, is whether or not Miles Morales will still look as good on the PS4 compared to how it looks now on the PS5. And based on Insomniac's statement, it doesn't look like we have too much to worry about. As they go on to say, Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales also supports a next-gen upgrade path. So even if you aren't ready to upgrade to PS5 just yet, there's nothing stopping you from buying the PS4 version and enjoying the game alongside everyone else at launch. While it doesn't have the enhancements made possible by the console in the PS5 version, the game still looks beautiful on PS4 and PS4 Pro, and you can rest easy that when you do make the jump to PS5, the game comes with you. So if I am understanding this properly, this does sound like a similar situation as to what we already know about with Marvel's Avengers, where if if you did currently buy the PlayStation 4 version of Marvel's Avengers, but decide to upgrade to the PS5 version later on, your upgrade from PS4 to PS5 will come at no additional cost. So seeing the same exact thing is happening right now with Miles Morales is just a great thing to see for both PS4 and upcoming PS5 owners. Because coming from me personally, I haven't actually managed to acquire a PS5 pre-order yet. So if by some chance I'm sadly not able to acquire a PS5 on launch day, I'll still be able to play Miles Morales no matter what, since I do currently have a PS4 Pro. So seeing that Insomniac Games is trying to be as consumer friendly as possible is just an absolutely wonderful choice on their part. And speaking of being consumer friendly, boy oh boy does Insomniac Games have a treat for us. So not only will Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales release on both the PS4 and PS5 on November 12th or November 19th worldwide, depending on where you are in the world, but the game itself is going to be completely attached with a fully remastered version of Marvel's Spider-Man. Now, even though you will have to pay a little more money to actually get both Miles Morales and the remastered edition of Marvel's Spider-Man, it does come with a lot of brand new upgrades, some of which I know a lot of you are gonna freak out about. And as the article states, that's not all. We have one more surprise for you today. On PS5, we are announcing an Ultimate Edition that includes a voucher code for Marvel's Spider-Man Remastered. You'll be able to experience the complete storyline up to this point, which includes the remaster of the original game and all 3 installments of the Marvel's Spider-Man The City That Never Sleeps DLC, so you can play the full narrative arc. And if this didn't get you hyped up enough, the remaster for the PS5 is no simple up-res, as many of the game's art assets had been completely updated to take advantage of the PS5 console's horsepower. You'll see better looking characters with improved skin, eyes, hair, and facial animation, including our new next generation Peter Parker. You'll also see ray trace reflections and ambient shadows, as well as improved lighting, more pedestrians, and vehicles stretching further into the distance, and the same optimal performance mode offered on Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales, allowing you to finally play the game at a targeted 60 FPS frame rate. Furthermore, we'll be supporting near instant loading, 3D audio, and the DualSense controller's haptic feedback, all for Marvel's Spider-Man Remastered. And lastly, which is going to hype up a lot of people, we're adding 3 amazing new Spider-Man suits, new photo mode features, and even new trophies for those of you looking to platinum the game all over again. The Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales Ultimate Edition will launch both physically and digitally on the PlayStation Store for $69.99 on launch day. And lo and behold, here lies the beautiful Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales box art that we've already seen, as well as the Marvel's Spider-Man Remastered voucher code stamp on the front of the box, as well as the Ultimate Edition golden inlay that we see at the very top of the case. So just to recap all of this amazing info that has occurred right now, in case your minds have been blown just like mine has, is that the definitive edition of Miles Morales is essentially going to be Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales the Ultimate Edition on PS5, with the amazing addition of the remastered version of Marvel's Spider-Man completely enhanced in every way imaginable on PS5. And while I am personally extremely excited to see the brand new next generation Peter Parker visual aesthetic in the game once we actually play it for ourselves on the PS5, I know a lot of you are completely hyped about the main section I highlighted within that paragraph, which is obviously none other than the 3 brand new Spider-Man costumes to be featured in the remastered version of Marvel's Spider-Man. Now, what's interesting about this description is obviously the use of the word amazing, and considering how we did not receive the Amazing Spider-Man movie suits in Spider-Man PS4, but we did get all the MCU suits as well as the infamous Raimi suit within Spider-Man PS4 by the end of 2018, I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest if the 3 main suits that Insomniac are referring to is the Vigilante suit that we saw in Amazing Spider-Man 1, as well as the original Amazing Spider-Man 1 movie suit, which I personally love even more than the next one on the list, which is none other than the Amazing Spider-Man 2 movie suit. If these suits end up actually being featured within the game, it is going to completely bring Spider-Man PS4 full circle in terms of its movie representation. From Tobey Maguire to Andrew Garfield to Tom Holland, every single on-screen Spider-Man suit would be fully showcased in Spider-Man's Remastered Edition if this ends up happening. But on the flip side, it could easily be some other comic book suits that weren't originally featured within Spider-Man PS4. And the main 3 that come off the top of my head right now when thinking about it is Bullet Point Spider-Man, Cosmic Spider-Man, as well as the sensational Spider-Man. But regardless, knowing the fact that we're getting new suits, new photo mode content, and new trophies to unlock when playing through the game fully remastered on PlayStation 5 is just a dream come true. And if it turns out that for whatever reason you don't end up enjoying Miles Morales PS5 as much as you thought you would, you can still fully enjoy the masterpiece that is Marvel's Spider-Man completely remastered on PS5. I personally never wanted to be November more so than I do right now, and seeing that we're getting all this spectacular Spider-Man greatness within November alone is just an absolute mind trip. However, I sadly have to crash the Spider-Man high that you're all probably feeling right now with some slightly unfortunate news coming directly from Insomniac Games over on Twitter. So if you're a Spider-Man fanatic like myself, you're probably wondering if they're gonna have any type of special edition relating to Miles Morales, either that in the form of the Collector's Edition or even a PS5 themed bundle. Well, surprise, surprise, it turns out that both of those dreams have been unfortunately crushed, with Insomniac Games confirming on Twitter that there is in fact not going to be a Collector's Edition of Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales, or even not going to be a Miles Morales PS5 themed console. And instead, the only editions that you can purchase for Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales on launch is with that of the Standard Edition clocking in at $49.99 USD, as well as the Ultimate Edition featuring the Marvel Spider-Man Remastered at a total price of $69.99 USD. So while it is a bit of a bummer that we're not going to get any type of quote-unquote special editions for Miles Morales at launch, I still think it's crazy with all the Spider-Man greatness we're getting in November regardless. And considering the fact that Miles Morales PS5 is in fact a launch title for the console, it does make sense that we wouldn't get stuff for the game with special editions right now. Although, in the far future, whenever they decide to officially reveal the full sequel of Marvel's Spider-Man 2, I do think it is safe to say that we will get some collector's editions or even a PS5 themed bundle of that game down the line. But as for whether or not that actually ends up happening, we'll just have to keep our fingers crossed on that matter entirely. But to finalize the smorgasbord of Spider-Man news, I do want to end with the final statement coming directly from the PlayStation blog post that James Stevenson wrote. And if this doesn't get you hyped, I don't know what will. We have been working hard all year to ensure that PS5 will launch with Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales as well as Marvel's Spider-Man Remastered. We have big plans for the Marvel Spider-Man universe with our partners at PlayStation and Marvel, and we cannot wait for you to experience the next adventure with Miles. All in all, everyone, Insomniac Games have gone completely above and beyond when it comes to surpassing my own personal expectations of Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales. Not only does Miles Morales look absolutely incredible by the gameplay we saw in and of itself, but knowing that there's even more features that we haven't even seen of the game yet, as well as the addition of the remastered package with the game on launch, is just insane. I seriously hope that I can secure a PS5 pre-order sometime soon, because you can bet your bottom dollar that I'm going to be completely entranced with Marvel Spider-Man Remastered and Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales the second both of those games launch on November 12th. And considering the enormous amount of info that we simply received about this game in just one day, I can only imagine what Insomniac has in store next. But until that time comes, everyone, that's the massive news video that I have for you today, and please let me know all your thoughts in the comments section down below. What do you think about the absolute hype that is surrounding Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales right now, as well as the incredible addition of Marvel's Spider-Man Remastered? Knowing that both Peter Parker and Miles Morales are going to get the complete PlayStation 5 next generation treatment that they completely deserve is just an absolute treat for me as a hardcore Spider-Man fan. And knowing how breathtaking Miles was looking on the PlayStation 5, I can only begin to grasp how beautiful Peter Parker will look on the PS5 as well. And seeing that there's not going to be a collector's edition or a PS5 themed bundle, you can bet your bottom dollar that I'm going to be copying the Ultimate Edition on day one. But until next time, everyone, thank you all so much for watching. Stay spectacular, Spidey fans. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel if you did enjoy. And without further ado, peace out.